Afternoon, everyone. As you know, and you attended yesterday's class, and I started with the thing new criticism. So today I will be focusing on text based criticism, and in this series, I have to discuss the very first theory, and that is new criticism. The period was at its height from 1940 to 1960, and it developed during 1930s and 1940s. It is said to be originated with the publication of T.S. Eliot's book, The Sacred Wood, and John Crow Ransom's book, The New Criticism. But this term made current in 1941 by the publication of New Criticism by John Crow Ransom. And T.S. Eliot and I. Richards are said to be the pioneers of new criticism. What we are going to do here, it is based on a close linguistic study of the text. I will give you one example here. Text is seen as a kind of message in a bottle without a sender, date, or address. That means we are going to rely purely on text's intrinsic qualities. Here, Wordsworth's theory does not match. Wordsworth has to say, poetry is the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings, emotion recollected in tranquility. And on the other hand, T.S. Eliot will opine that poetry is not the turning loose of emotion, it is an escape from emotion, an escape from personality. What do you mean by this sentence? That in as Eliot has framed his definition of poetry, that the poet will not be personal, and his feelings and emotions doesn't have any room so far as T.S. Eliot is concerned. So the primary function in new criticism is to evaluate only the text and text qualities. Our focus will be on the product and not the producer. There is no room for moral or psychological, consideration. And we have certain critics. Please note down the name of those important stalwarts, important practitioners of this group. So first name is John Crow Ransom, and he has given the principle of texture. Alan Tate, gesture, he has given the concept of gesture. Emerson is famous for his concept ambiguity. Emerson is famous for his concept ambiguity. And Cleeth Brooks. So next, I am going to switch over to Russian formalism, which is quite similar to new criticism. As you know, the formalists were a group of critics in Russia at the time of the 1917 revolution. So around 1920s, it came into prominence, and emphasis falls on form, structure, style, symbols. These are to be judged here. Okay, their thinking about literature planted the seeds that led to structuralism. These movements refuse to look beyond or outside language, or text is again regarded as a linguistic construct. Linguistic construct. Here I will also use one phrase, one word, defamiliarization, which anticipates the Brechtian notion of the alienation effect. Defamiliarization. Okay, and similar terms I am going to use here. Philology, which denotes that this approach will be centered around editorial problems and the reconstruction of text. Okay, the materiality of text, it's a major concern of traditional philology, which is still relevant in today's scholarship. You know the word rhetoric. Rhetoric and stylistics we have to discuss here. Rhetoric remained the dominant textual discipline for almost 2000 years. Rhetoric compiled a number of rules and techniques for efficient composition and powerful oratory. Rhetoric was concerned with teaching effectively how to influence the masses. Okay, so emphasis falls on eloquence. And stylistics, the word is stylistics, it is focused, this branch of study, this branch of literary criticism is focused on grammatical structures. Okay. Now, in this continuation, I will be focusing on structuralism, which is quite interesting for, I think, all of you. In the first decade of the 20th century, the Swiss linguist Ferdinand de Saussure introduced a new approach to language, and the paradigm shift in of literary criticism is to be seen in the year 1966. Please note down. And it's an attempt to free criticism from mimetic criticism. Traces of structuralism can be seen in new criticism and formalism. Process of death of author begins. Next theory which I am going to take up is post-structuralism, which is a reaction or response or in continuation to structuralism, which we have just finished. So here with post-structuralism, we move into an area of total chaos where we are unable to make sense of anything. And here we are reminded of modernism and the very important text, the most representative text of modernism, that is the Wasteland. Wasteland completely symbolizes, chaos, darkness, all kind of negativity, hopelessness. These were the features. And here in post-modernism or post-structuralism, we will be concerned with all these things. So please note down one more point, that it is concerned with the fallibility of all reading. That means language is an infinite chain of words which has no extra lingual origin or end. Yeah, that means again we are relying on the text. We don't have to look outside the text for deriving the interpretation, deriving the meaning. And here we have very big name, very important name, French deconstructionist, that is Derrida and Roland Barthes. And in American deconstructionism, we have such names, please note down, Paul de Man, Hillis Miller, Geoffrey Hartman, these three names. Okay. Foucault and Bakhtin have concentrated on the term social discourse. Please note down one important term, that is aporia or a textual knot. Aporia means a textual knot. When we say that all reading is fallible, or there is no correct root, or meaning constantly changes, meaning continues, that means we are in a stage of total chaos or anarchy or confusion. Okay. And all reading is misreading. This is what deconstructionists or post-structuralists say, that all reading is misreading. That means no one interpretation can be correct, no one route, no one methodology is correct. So it's a all situation of confusion and anarchy. Closure is impossible. Please note down this line. Closure, reaching to a fixed meaning. As I have discussed 3 or 4 new criticism, I have discussed post-structuralism, structuralism I have finished, and formalism I have finished. So now I am moving to deconstruction, which is similar, very much familiar with post-structuralism. Okay, and the very important notion which I have to share is here we have to say that the text is plural. Please note down, the text is plural. It has multiple meaning. Text's plurality we have to discuss. And please note down, all reading is fallible. This we have discussed earlier also. All reading is fallible, and there is difficulty in untying the text or revealing the meaning of the text. Okay. Derrida is the chief mentor. This you already know. Derrida has coined the new words like, please note down, different, other, textuality, presence, and impossible. Okay. Text is seen, you may note down, text is seen as an endless process. text is seen as an endless process. These deconstructionists are anti-humanist also. Anti-humanist. Clear? They demolish the concept of author. They say that author is dead. There is no need to go back to author's point of view, or what was the author's intention. Author is dead. Okay. Foucault said, please note down, Foucault said, what does it matter who is speaking? Author's identity? Useless here. What does it matter who is speaking? Deconstruction has influenced modern philosophical, social, moral, political, linguistic and other literary theories. Again, we say that deconstruction is not a philosophical system but a devastating critique of many earlier systems of thought. Devastating critique. Okay? Because it demolishes the earlier interpretations, the earlier ideas. And it's a new way, please note down, it's a new way of looking at things. It's a new way of looking at the world with some new kind on the use of language, with some new kind on the use. In continuation to these theories which I have discussed in today's class, I think that it will be profitable for you people to discuss a few things related to research methodology, and research methodology especially for language and literature students. And here we will be discussing things in relation to literature class, literature subject. We will be citing some examples from literature also. So the very first heading which is mentioned here in your first unit is foundation of research. What is the foundation of research, or what do you mean by the word research? So research is something that you are going to create for the first time. A kind of inquiry will be there, a kind of survey you will be using. These methods you will be following because you are going to establish some new idea to the academic world. You are going to contribute something new to the academic world or literary world, isn't it? So this is research, finding in a new way or bringing some solution, okay, or establishing some new idea or reaching to some new conclusion. This is a kind of research. Or some idea that has already been defined, that has already been established, you are adding something new to it, right? So introduction of research, then objectives. What will be the objectives behind your research work? You have to think deeply, you have to go deep into your own mind, that what is leading you to involve yourself in this research process which will be it will be of 2 to 4 5 years, a long span of time. So what is the objective? This you have to think, that some new topic you have taken up and you are going to establish some new theory, or you are going to give some new interpretation of some literary text, isn't it? Then meaning of research. Meaning you already know that we are going to give a new idea to the previous idea which is already there in the academic world. Then what is the scope? Scope also you have to decide, and you have to prove it. You have to mention it in your research proposal, that what is the scope of your research. Limitation can be understood by another term.